We have broken a ton of the systems that cause the financial infrastructure and the world to work properly, and we are just starting to uncover how they're broken.
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have Chamath and the In Podcast discussing his views on the current financial crisis and the recent crackdown on cryptocurrency. Chamath questions whether the current administration's sudden focus on crypto is correlated with the stress on the banking system. He points out that we're headed for a three-phase financial crisis, with the current phase being banking, followed by a credit crunch and a government debt crisis. Chamath also discusses rumors about FTX's approval by the SEC and how SEC Chairman Gary Gensler's shift from being pro-FTX to anti-crypto may have been influenced by these rumors. Let's get right into the latest interview with Chamath and the In Podcast, as he warns of a massive shift coming to the market in 2023. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content we do here. Let's get right into the video.
I think that there was a rumor going around, I don't know how true it is, that FTX was days away from getting a critical approval by the SEC to actually even further legitimize their US exchange before they went out of business. So I think Gensler had to pivot very hard from, at a minimum, being very pro-FTX, and there's all kinds of stories about his interrelatedness with Sam and his family, to very anti-bit or anti-crypto in general. That's clearly happened. But look, I think that this is like a lot of tin hatting, which I don't think is very productive. If you look at the total number of non-zero Bitcoin wallet addresses in the world, and let's be extremely generous and say it's 100 million. There's still 7 billion people in the world. And so I just think everybody that tries to speak about the fragility of the US and worldwide banking system is right. And that part I think is quite lucid and unemotional. But every time they try to connect it to Bitcoin, they sound like a crazy person because they're just talking their book. I still believe that it's valuable. I was the earliest proponent of Bitcoin. 2011, 2012. So I believe that there's a place for it in one's portfolio, but I just think connecting these dots misses the point. And I think the point is much, much bigger than a crypto off-ramp. The point is that we have a lot of systemic shocks that are building up in the system. We have broken a ton of the systems that cause the financial infrastructure and the world to work properly, and we are just starting to uncover how they're broken.
So first of all, I don't think you can disparage Balaji, because someone who cries wolf says this repeatedly and makes a dire prediction repeatedly and is wrong. And we can't say yet that Balaji is wrong. Do I think that we're going to have $1 million Bitcoin in 90 days? I personally find that very unlikely, but you can't say yet. He stuck his neck out making a prediction that will be easily falsified if he's wrong. Second, the last time that Balaji made a dire prediction was COVID. And he was right about that one. So you can't say that this is just like a doomer who throws out crazy predictions and is always wrong. He's actually pretty selective about his predictions. Yeah, there was a tweet from January 30th of 2020 in which he basically predicted a pandemic based on a coronavirus and laid out a whole bunch of consequences that mostly came true. Which is why we're talking about this. This is not just some like random person. Like, he actually has a pedigree and a track record. What do I think about it? I posted my own theory today, which I would call sort of Balaji light, which is, okay, look, if you think about this spike in interest rates that we've had, and that Chamath thinks will actually continue quite a bit longer, there are three main effects that it indisputably has. Number one, undercuts the value of long-dated bonds. Number two, it's made lending much more expensive, particularly for big purchases like real estate. Number three, it's increased government lending costs. Okay, now play that through the financial system. What does that mean? Well, if the value of long-dated bonds has sharply decreased, well, that's led to this banking crisis with the unrealized losses. That's already happened. Number two, it's made lending more expensive, the credit crunch and CRE. We're beginning to see that. And I believe that's going to play out as the second crisis of this larger financial crisis. And then number three is the increase in government borrowing costs. That will eventually play out in terms of being a government debt crisis of some kind. And I think it'll involve a spike in borrowing costs at the federal level. It'll involve sovereign debt issues internationally. I think it'll involve budget deficits at states and cities. So I think there's 3 phases to this financial crisis. We're in phase 1, and I think CRE and government debt are the next 2 phases. And I think a lot of that lines up with what Balaji thinks. Where I disagree with him is I don't think we can know what's going to happen in 90 days. I think that the CRE crisis is highly deflationary. It's going to create distress everywhere in the economy. That is going to lead to a massive reduction in liquidity. I think that the government debt crisis, assuming the government wants to inflate and monetize the debt as a way to solve that problem, that will be highly inflationary. But when these things play out, we can't know. I think that's what makes this really hard is I think jumping all the way to the sort of finish line and saying we're going to have $1 million Bitcoin in 90 days because the US dollar is worthless, I think that's premature. I think this could play out over the next couple of years.
We have a real problem if Bitcoin is the exit ramp.
Why?
For an inflationary crisis, because it's not accessible enough. It's not easily transactable for folks. I'm sorry to be negative to the Bitcoin maximalists. I'm generally in favor of this kind of independent storage system that's outside of government and state control. I think there's just this unfortunate reality. I mean, we saw with the Wells notice to Coinbase today. They just arrested that crypto guy.
Do Kwon was arrested in Montenegro, of all places.
Montenegro, great country. Kraken won't let you wire money in or out as of, I think, Monday or Tuesday. And so, it's clearly becoming kind of a less accessible system of storage. No, what's more accessible? Well, I do think that one of the reasons we're seeing the market move the way it does is because folks are shifting their risk assets around quite a bit right now to figure out where is a good place to put money.
Well, there's a really interesting article that was just published on Substack by Nick Carter, who I guess is a guest writer on Mike Solana's Substack called Pirate Wires. It's a follow-up piece to an article he wrote 6 weeks ago where he laid out an operation by the Biden administration called Operation Choke Point, which made the case that the Biden administration was quietly attempting to ban crypto. And now, a month later, there's all these things all these steps that the administration is taking to go after crypto. And he lays out a bunch in a bullet point list. So the SEC announced a lawsuit against crypto infrastructure company Paxos. Crypto exchange Kraken settled with the SEC. SEC Chair Gensler openly labeled every crypto asset other than Bitcoin a security. Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works held a hearing lambasting Bitcoin. Biden administration proposed a bill that singles out crypto miners for owners' tax treatment. New York Attorney General declared Ethereum, which is the second largest crypto asset, a security. That's a huge change, by the way. SEC continued its anti-consumer protection efforts by doubling down their attempt to block a spot Bitcoin ETF. OCC let crypto bank Protego's application for a national trust charter expire. And then the SEC just sent Coinbase a Wells notice. So I think it's hard to argue that there isn't a concerted effort now to crack down on crypto.
Chamath believes that attempting to connect concerns about the fragility of the global banking system to Bitcoin can make one sound irrational and like they are promoting their own interests. He also points out that while there may be a large number of non-zero Bitcoin wallet addresses, there are still billions of people in the world who are not involved in the cryptocurrency market. While Chamath was an early proponent of Bitcoin, he believes there is a place for it in one's portfolio, but thinks that connecting the dots between Bitcoin and systemic shocks misses the point. He says there are many systemic shocks building up in the system, and many broken systems in the financial infrastructure that need to be repaired, or we could be facing a bigger collapse than most realize. What do you think about Chamath's take on the current market and where we're headed in 2023? Comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.